Okay, here's our video on ratios. So ratios compare things. They compare two things. Put that over there. So for example, let's say we compare the number of things. So let's say we had these stars and we had circles. So with a ratio, you're comparing the number of stars to the number of circles. In this case, the ratio of stars to circles would be 3 to 2. And we'll go over more of those. So here's an example. Let's say Sal had 3 apples and 5 peaches. Now if I ask the question, what is the ratio of apples to peaches? Well, there's 3 apples and there's 5 peaches. So the ratio is 3 to 5. And you can write ratios many ways. You can write it like we just said, 3 to 5. Or we can write it like this. We can write it with this colon here. 3 to 5. That means 3 to 5. Or you can write it like a ratio, like a fraction. Make it like that. It looks like a fraction, but ratios are not fractions. Okay, so the difference is with a fraction, you're not comparing fractions. Ratios are part to part. Fractions are part to whole. So let me go over that. If we had, we'll draw this. Let's draw the stars again. Let's say we had 4 stars this time, and we had 2 circles. If I asked what is the ratio of stars to circles, the ratio is 4 to 2. You can write it like that. Or you can write it like a fraction, 4 to 2. Or you can just say 4 to 2. You can also write it as words. You can say for every 4 stars, there's 2 circles. Now, with a fraction, you would say, what is the fraction of stars? Fractions are part to whole. Fractions are part to whole. There are 4 stars, and the total amount of shapes you have is 6. Dan had 7 cars and 3 trucks. What is the ratio of trucks to cars? What is the ratio of trucks to cars? Well, the ratio of trucks now, remember, whatever I say first, you're going to use first in numbers. I didn't say cars to trucks. I said, what is the ratio of trucks to cars? Right, notice that colon there? So look at the trucks. There's 3 trucks and there's 7 cars. So that would be the ratio. Don't do 7 to 3 because I said trucks to cars. Now if I said, what is the ratio of cars to trucks? Then that's 7 to 3. So keep that in mind. That's very important. What was said first is the number you use first. Remember that. That's important. So again, the 3 ways we can write it. Just put it here. You can say 3 to 7. Like this with 2, or 3 colon 7, or 3 over 7. Looks like a fraction, but it's not. It's a ratio. It's part to part. And remember, fractions are part to whole. Now, if we say, what is the fraction of cars he has? The fraction of cars he has would be 3 over 10. There's 10 total toys. Let's say these are toys. What was the fraction of cars? He has 3 cars and 10 total items. Actually, that would be the fraction of trucks. Fraction of trucks, it was 3 trucks. Let's go back to that question. Dan had 7 cars. So he has 3 trucks. The fraction of trucks he has is 3 to 10. The fraction of cars he has will be 7 over 10. Again, with fractions, it's part to whole. Let's look at one that is a word problem. So here is Dr. Fred had 3 sport magazines, 5 fashion magazines, and 2 health magazines in his office. So this is in his waiting room. What is the ratio of health magazines to non-sport magazines? So let's bring this over. Make sure you pause the tape so you can read it again. Dr. Fred had 3 sport magazines, 5 fashion magazines, 2 health magazines. They're in his office. And what is the ratio of health magazines to non-sport magazines? So what do you think? So the ratio of health magazines. Let's look in the. There's 2 health magazines. 2 health, so, and that's what comes first. So we're going to use 2. Non-sport. Magazines that are not sports. Well, he has 3 sport magazines, and the rest are non-sport magazines. So there's 5 fashion and 2 health. That's 7 non-sport magazines. So the ratio of health magazines to non-sport magazines is 2 to 7. Or you can write it like this. Or what other way? Like a fraction. It looks like a fraction, but it's not. And you can also use words. For every 2 health magazines, there are 7 non-sport magazines. Let's look at ratios with pictures. We did this earlier. We'll use stars again. What is the ratio of squares to triangles? Excuse me, squares to stars. What do you think? Okay, remember I said squares first. So we have to use that first. So there's 3 squares, and how many stars are there? There's 5 stars. So that's the ratio. You can write it like this. You can write it like looks like a fraction. Or for every 3 squares, there are 5 stars. Okay, that's part 1 of ratios. In part 2, we'll look at more ratios and tape diagrams. Good job.